If you haven't yet, when are you going to cross the line and have a wake-up call about your health? Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci, and I hope you're doing well. So it's interesting. Usually people who come to carnivore, they come to carnivore for one of a few different reasons, mainly. Some people, it's people who are into athletic sports and they want to up their game, they want to up their performance, and they want to give this carnivore diet a shot because they heard it gives them better and more even energy throughout the day. And then there's other people that are just doing it to tweak their health because they got some health problems, maybe some autoimmune disorders, and they want to try and see if this can help affect that because they've heard good things about the effects of a carnivore diet. And then there's other people like myself. I fall into these last two categories. And it's people who are trying to lose weight. But my main reason for doing carnivore was I feel so darn good doing it. So the first time I ever tried zero carb, I noticed within 3 or 4 days, usually waking up on day 4, the inflammation was dramatically better throughout my body. I could move easier. I didn't have any joint stiffness. And that was the first indication when I realized, wow, this is something that has a profound effect on my body. And the longer I did it, the better I got. So most of my health problems have gotten better, but I went through a slew of health problems. And the thing is, I got to a very dangerous weight on numerous occasions in my life. Now, when I was younger and I went through that, well, you have youth on your side. But when I was going through that in my 30s and 40s, it was wreaking havoc on my body. And some of them, it was wreaking havoc silently. And others, it was obvious. Like I would say I was about 27 and I came down with gout for the first time, and it was horribly painful. I knew exactly what it was from the first moment. I was lying on a friend's couch and I woke up. I was house sitting at their place and I woke up with the weight of the blanket on my foot, causing extreme pain. And I knew exactly what that was because I learned about it in college. And that's what they told us. Even the weight of a sheet lying over someone's foot can put them in aggravating, horrible pain. And that's exactly what I experienced. So I thought, okay, this is horrible. So I went and I got to confirm that it was gout, but my uric acid levels were just off the charts. It wasn't even extreme because what I didn't know at the time was metabolic syndrome was the bigger underlying issue. So either way, I've been treated for gout for a lot of years, and I was trying for 15 years, almost 20 years to manage that pain and discomfort, mainly through anti-inflammatories, which wreaked a bunch of other havoc on my body. Because when you take steroid-based anti-inflammatories for a long period of time, it causes blood clots. And that led me to have a heart attack by the time I was 41. I think I just turned 41 a couple weeks before. Yeah, so here's the crazy thing. I still didn't have my wake-up call. I was overweight for years and years and years. I had health problems that were in the forefront and in the background, like my cholesterol was really high, and probably since my early mid-20s. I didn't get it checked till I was 25 or 26, and that's when they said, yeah, your cholesterol's high, but that's because of your thyroid. Your thyroid's out, and that's what causes your cholesterol to be out. So my doctor wasn't too concerned about it because I had youth on my side. He said, we won't put you on any statins yet. I went on statins after my heart attack, not by choice. They put me on it while I was in the hospital after I had my heart attack. My own family doctor said, like the numbers are changing through the years now, and we realize it's not the demon we thought it was. But my cardiologist clearly had a different view, and they're only concerned about the system they're dealing with. If you're having leg problems and it's because of your gout and you're in horrible pain, your cardiologist could care less. They're like, stay on your aspirin. Because I also learned aspirin triggers gout attacks. So that was pretty difficult to go through because I had one doctor saying stick on the aspirin. I had another doctor saying, no, you got to get off the aspirin. And I was like, look, man, you guys got to talk to each other. And that's the problem when you're dealing with specialists, is they're only focused on their piece of the pie. And that's good. I went through some serious health problems for a long period of time, on top of the discomfort of being overweight for a long time. It's not always nice getting in and out of cars. It's not always nice always having to sit in the front seat when you're sharing a car with a bunch of other people. If you're driving, no big deal. But all the other times, it's kind of inconvenient. There's lots of times where you're just generally uncomfortable, but it's kind of in the background. You can still go out walking. You just can't walk very hard or fast. You can walk, but you don't enjoy walking up hills because you get winded easily, but you can still walk. So your day-to-day life is impacted, but you, without really paying attention to it, you modify your daily activities around your limitations. And even though I was working out, I wasn't spending enough time doing cardio. I eventually had plantar fasciitis, so I couldn't do running anymore, and I couldn't do lots of even walking because my plantar fasciitis got so bad. That's inflammation on the soles of your feet. I eventually got that managed, but it really changed the way I was exercising. All of a sudden, I had to start doing low and zero impact exercises. I used to like doing boxing and martial arts, and that had to go, right? So it starts affecting your life. Your sugar cravings are affecting everything in your life. They affect the food choices you make, and those food choices are affecting your day-to-day lifestyle, your quality. And eventually your quality is going to get so bad, as mine did, that you'll make a decision. And what happened with me was I went through a lot of health problems, a slew of health problems. I've talked about in lots of my older videos, and my heart attack still wasn't my wake-up call. That's pretty crazy. That's a wake-up call for most people. But my heart attack, because I didn't realize at the time, if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, it buffers the severity of the symptoms. So my heart attack was 100% blockage in my right coronary artery. So you can't have a heart attack more serious than that unless it was maybe in the left side, which might kill you instantly. But I felt good. I didn't have any tightness in my chest. I had probably the worst sensation out of 10 was a 4 out of 10. I had a bunch of different sensations I was feeling, but none of them were too extreme. So I didn't go through that panic and wake up call that most people go through. I knew I was having a heart attack, and I'll get into that again in another video. It's been a while since I talked about that. It probably helped prevent me from having a wake up call because the seriousness of it wasn't so bad. I had gone through gout attacks that were worse than that, way worse than that. I was fine. And eventually I had kidney stones from my gout. So I had these very serious health problems: hypothyroidism, heart attack, metabolic syndrome, gout. I had a lot of these problems that extended into other problems, and they caused other problems. The more you calm the waters, the better those pathologies get. So cutting out carbohydrates and sugars does that for people. It gets it under control, but sometimes you start down this path and you recognize after a while, maybe you came from years of yo-yo dieting, or maybe you came from a history of keto, and keto got you so far and you learned about carbohydrates, and most of those diets you probably did were low carb diets and you couldn't sustain them, and you did keto and you felt better. Or maybe you didn't even bother with keto, you just jumped right into carnivore. And this is where you learn that lesson. Are you an abstainer or moderator? So that's one of the difficulties I had, because for years I'd been trying to do zero carb or extremely low carb and couldn't maintain it, because it took me years to accept the fact I was an abstainer. So once I accepted that, and it took a bit of a tragedy for me to accept that, and it's weird, this tragedy wasn't as big as the heart attack or all these chronic gout attacks. So I'd say for a solid 15 years, I was getting serious gout attacks that were, I was wearing slippers to work because my foot was so bad. I was always parking as close to the door wherever I went, because I never knew when I was going to have a flare up. And those flare ups, sometimes you wake up with them, sometimes they come on and get worse through the day. And I always noticed my diet had an impact on it, because whenever I was trying a clean diet, I would start to get these gout attacks. And that's because my body was starting to flush out ketones. And ketones getting flushed out is a good thing. But if you're prone to gout, that means you have kidney problems. It's not just a form of arthritis. It originates in the kidney. The kidney's not flushing out your uric acid very well. It's getting put in second place and prioritizing the ketones out of the body. It rules your whole life. And I eventually got to this point where I was having these chronic gout attacks. I just went through a lot of life changes in a very short amount of time, some very stressful changes in a variety of areas in my life. And one of them was the final straw. It was a final straw. And to me, it was one of the worst things out of all of them. And most of these were life-changing events. I had to put my dog down. And I've talked about this in other videos, so I don't mean to be a broken record about it, but it was very serious for me. It was not a fun thing to go through. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. I loved that dog so much. It probably affected me dramatically more than my divorce in some ways. So how does a dog getting put down affect me and my carnivore diet? Well, I binged. I emotionally ate because I was an emotional eater, and I was eating all this junk food, and I would binge on junk food. I wouldn't just have some ice cream. I'd have a container of ice cream. I wouldn't have some Haagen-Dazs. I'd have 3 containers of Haagen-Dazs. I wouldn't have a piece of cake. I'd have a whole cake. I was just ridiculous with my portion sizes and my sugar cravings. Bad combination. And I went through that for almost 5 months, from the time my dog got sick, and then the 4 months after I put him down was probably about 5 months, until I finally had my epiphany. My moment where I realized, it was my breaking point. It was my moment where I realized, oh man, I have no control over this. I have no control. For years I've been trying to moderate carbs and sugar, and I just couldn't. And what I learned was I had to abstain. It was a bit of a wake-up call for me. Now, it's hard to believe after everything else I went through that I didn't have that wake-up call before with all those other health conditions, but it's also part of youth. It's not that you think you're invincible, but if nothing really hurts you or touches you too severely, that's life-threatening, unfortunately, I would just tend to accept it as part of my life. And these things would compound. All these health conditions would compound, but most of them were in the background. Some of them were in the foreground. My obvious weight was in the foreground. My gut attacks were in the foreground, but everything else was pretty silent, happening in the background. And sometimes it's going to take something huge for you to make that change. The importance of recognizing if you're an abstainer or moderator is going to make the big difference when you have that moment when you realize you have to make a decision. You have to have a wake-up call to help you understand that you have to make some serious life changes. Sometimes you try and just keep going with your quality of life and making small compromises, but you know what? If you're still overweight and your blood work's not showing up really good and you have lots of different health problems and your age is also a factor, maybe you have to have that wake-up call. You're sort of negotiating with yourself beforehand, thinking that you can do just enough to keep you out of the woods, but you're not really out of the woods. You're just kind of seeing out of the woods. You're still in the woods looking outside, and you're like, hey, look, there's civilization. But you're still in the woods. You just don't see it. You're too far into it to recognize you need to have a moment of clarity to make a life-changing, a life-altering decision. This video isn't there to lecture you. It's there to help me explain through my experience what happened to me and how it can benefit you. Having to recognize what your wake-up call is. Trying to work towards a strict version of carnivore if that's what you need to do to get your health problems or weight under control. If you're already at a level of carnivore that you're satisfied with and you're getting all the health benefits you need and you only have to be 80 or 95% strict, that's great for you. But if you're struggling with sugar and carbohydrate addiction, you might have to go all the way. So thanks a lot. I appreciate you watching this video. I want you to take care.